All right, and we are live. How's it going, Sonny?
Man, I'm hanging in there. How about you?
It's cold, as we were
Trying to
just
stay
talking about.
warm? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
44
we've had this amazing fall. Yeah, it's just been so warm here in DC, and then all of a sudden we just got smacked in the face with cold winds and some snow, and
So
I'm
you've
not
been
ready for it.
outside. You've been outside operating the snowblower, right?
Right, not yet. You know, it's funny. I got one for Christmas like 5 years ago. I've used it maybe 3 times. My
Well,
wife
it's
said the
so
second you
fun.
get one, yeah, the second you get one, you're not going to need it, and she was right.
Do you have a fireplace?
Yes, yeah, wood burning fireplace. Yeah. Do you also?
No. Well, we got one outside, but it's not. And
N- Nothing on the inside.
we got a fake fireplace.
Well, the great thing about a wood burning fireplace is, it's wonderful in the room you're in, but it sucks the heat out of the rest of your house because the draft.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it sure is nice when you're enjoying that. So, what do you got going on in your end?
Well, before we started, we mentioned you going out to L.A. to was it Interscape Records?
Interscope Records. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not familiar with the brand, but that label. But yeah, I've been cleaning vinyl today. So I had about
Really?
10 or 12 new albums, and I had several old albums. My wife's mother gave us all of her old albums. I'm talking about Floyd Kramer, Sonny James. I'm talking about,
Old.
you know, anyway, I cleaned several. I usually clean several new ones, and then I'll jump in there and clean at the end of the cleaning of the several new ones. I'll jump in
Yep.
there and clean some old ones at the end because the cleaning solution with the Kismet audio cleaner and
Uh-huh.
I mean I use the Dr. X record cleaner, the Kismet first, and then I move it to the Dr. X and do the vacuum thing. So I do a double cleaning. But yeah, that's what I've been doing today, and listening to a lot of vinyl. I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Art Pepper most of the day.
Really?
Yeah, love it, man. I love
That's fantastic.
I don't know. I mean, I love jazz. So yeah, but
sounds like a good way to spend your day.
Yeah. How about you?
I was today I chatted with the CEO of Oro, the former Oro 3D.
Okay.
Now Gerdina or Ger Dynamics. And I'll have a good update. We talked for about an hour in the early hours of this morning because he's over in Europe. So we have a news podcast going live on Monday. So I have a update on really what's happening there. It's actually a fascinating story. And I think this is going to be a really big moment for them. So some interesting stuff to talk about there. And then I was hanging out with Trinov. They were helping me get waveforming running today.
Yeah, matter of fact, I think our guest might have a little something to say about that. I think they haven't quite implemented that in the synthesis unit yet, but I think maybe they're waiting on it. It's close.
Yeah. We'll see what's happening there. Yeah, we can maybe touch on that at the end. Actually, bringing up our guest before we lose everybody that's joined us tonight with our banter. Thank you, by the way, everybody, for hanging out with us on this Friday evening or afternoon, wherever you are. We have a really great guy from the industry, Jim Garrett, and I'm going to read you his title because there is no way I could memorize this, but he is a senior director of product strategy and planning, luxury audio business unit at Harman. And
mouthful.
It is. But Jim and I have had an opportunity to interact with through some interviews at CEDIA over the past couple of years. In fact, I know he remembers me because I'm the guy that's had to cut some interviews twice now. I think there was 2 years running where I interviewed him, and for one reason or another, I think one year the battery died on my microphone, and I think that the year after that I was using an iPhone to record on the show floor, and somebody called me, and the telephone call cut the recording off, unbeknownst to me. And so we've we've had multiple conversations about the same thing back to back, but he's such a good spirit about it all. Just a super nice guy. So I'm excited to have him on tonight.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, let's bring him on.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about their new product line at JBL, luxury, the modern audio and speaker view. Is that right, Jim?
Yep. MA series AVRs, stage 2 series loudspeakers.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday afternoon out there. You're out in the West Coast, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in the Los Angeles area. Yep.
Los Angeles. Awesome.
A little bit of daylight for another hour, maybe.
No. Boy, it's so hard to get used to the dark just descending upon us. It's so early in the day.
Yeah, it's dark here.
30. I'm like, no.
Yep. Pitch black here as well.
Yep.
Well, Jim, we probably should have been talking online when we were all talking offline before, but something that's been happening in the industry, pretty much industry wide, and I think most people are aware of it, is there's just been this, I don't know, a hole developing kind of in the middle of the market, and there's a lot of finger pointing as to why. But one of the reasons is that the younger generation just doesn't seem to be buying equipment. And I knew you're going to tell us more about that, what your market research has told you, but that's kind of the kickoff for tonight. We were discussing some of the brands out there that have been having difficulties. And I know just probably even about 10 years ago when Emotiva launched their Basics line, they were telling me something similar to the story that you were telling us, that they're trying to tap that new generation of audiophiles, trying to hook them in with some affordable products that make sense for their current time in their life. And I was just talking to my oldest daughter. She's 22, and she was sharing something that we had written on AV Nirvana with a friend of hers who made a comment like, "Oh, I'd love to get into speakers, but I just can't afford it. Maybe some years down the road, I'm going to get into it." So that's the kind of person that you guys are really gunning for right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why. Just a lot of stuff that's changed. So, and you said you've got a 22-year-old. I have a 22-year-old son and 26-year-old son. So I'm surrounded by them here to see all their friends, what they like, what they dislike, how they use the products. So that gave me a little bit of insight. And if anything, maybe some proof points against the research that we were finding. Is it true? Obviously a microcosm of, the ones that I'm exposed to here, but certainly, a lot of good insights to see what was valid and what was not.
Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, with your own adult children, I guess, is that the way we phrase it when they're in their 20s?
Yes, I have two adults that still live here. Yes.
Right. Are you finding that they, like my two daughters are 20 and 22, and they are very, I would say for the most part, home theater averse. They'd rather kind of lay up in their bed and watch things on their phone. With the exception of my older daughter, she does like home theater in general, but my younger daughter, I can't get her to watch a movie at our home theater. It just seems like them and their friends are geared towards smaller convenience at at kind of the mercy of poorer quality, I guess.
There's some of that for sure. I think a couple of the things right off the bat, one of the things you mentioned is that they're living with you, as did I, right? And I think that's maybe one of the things too, is they're living at home longer now for a number of reasons, endless amounts of schooling, the simple fact of it's hard to buy a house and get out on your own, depending on I'm certainly in a market of that, but that's we're seeing that all over the country, right? It's not just because, hey, you're LA or New York. It's hard if you're coming out of school to get yourself established in your career and get a place to live. So we're seeing that people are living at home longer. So they don't have a home, first of all, to have home audio, at least when they're first getting started. And then as they move out from there, you have to think about generationally how things have changed. in terms of where they get their content, how it comes, what are the devices that they types of devices that they'll use. I've seen certainly with, you know, the friend group that shows up around the house here, they are by no means home theater averse. They love it. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting in my loft area in the back area here, but there's as you might imagine, a rather elaborate home theater that's in this space up here with a very large screen and a crazy, silly audio system. And they love, when their friends come over, they love to watch stuff up here. But also the other thing that we've seen is that there's the shared experience aspect of it as well too. So home theater does work well because of, you know, you can all gather around in a room and listen to stuff. But we see that their shared experiences through their computers, you know, because gaming is ubiquitous for all of them. They're all doing some sort of gaming. And so they're always going to be in some chat somewhere, you know. So my kids in that case, you know, again, high-end gaming rigs, they've certainly spent money on those between the computers themselves, the monitors, the keyboard, the mouse, the headsets, the microphones, everything that they've created. But typically you'll see, I'm going to them all the time, and one screen is open with their friends and the other one is whatever they're all shared and watching together, you know, whether it's content that they're streaming online or YouTube content or anything like that. That they're doing. So there's been some differences in that. Then I also watch how they listen to music and how they're doing it. And of course, the same thing, you know, I have no shortage of products around the house, but you know, with they'll take one of the party boxes out back and then they'll share it and everybody's DJing stuff off their streaming services. So a lot of it is not necessarily that they aren't interested. It's just that it's a different approach. You know, so that was one of the things that we found out of the research is all of the generations, as you move down, you know, I'm a Gen Xer, of course. And so as we've moved down to millennials and Gen Zs and now alphas coming after them, it's just, you know, a lot of this stuff wasn't here when we started and you grew into it. But think about the technologies now that Gen Zs, they've never known not having. You know, so, or technologies that we may have had that they never had and have never experienced. So there's a lot of those things were differences in just how they came up. You know, I didn't come up on portable Bluetooth speakers because they didn't exist. You know, I came up for my era, if we're all of similar age, you know, I came up through car audio. You know, it was for us, it was like when you were younger, your first chance to get out of the house was your car. Get out from mom and dad and go do it. And as a, you know, music lover, it was like I couldn't afford the home audio system, but then again, you weren't going to be able to really listen to your music around mom and dad or whatever. So you put your money into your car. And at that time, most car audio was kind of crap anyway. So, you know, all my money went into putting a high-end car audio system in, you know, and just every chance I got money to upgrade something, that's what I would do. But that's not the case necessarily anymore. They're coming from Bluetooth speakers and headphones, and a lot of times from the gaming side of it too. So it's just a different approach. What's the entry, the portal that they're coming into the category? But where do you go from there? So these were things that we talked about. I can rattle on forever, by the way, so you can always tell me to shut up.
My first car audio was an 8-track tape player plugged into an AM radio.
Is that true?
Right?
I'm not even going to tell you what the car was, but anyway, it had an AM radio in it. And a front center speaker. Center speaker started a long time ago. It was the only speaker in the car.
It was because it was the only one. Right. Yes, exactly. One big speaker in the middle of the dash.
Come to think of it, I think my Dodge Omni in high school had that one speaker right in the middle.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about that. Yeah.
You ever heard of a Ford Pinto?
Those are the cars that blew up, right?
Yeah, they were the danger cars.
Danger. Yes, exactly.
Well, I mean, look, it only cost $500 and it run. So, you know.
Yep.
And it played my 8-track tapes.
Right. Yeah. And then we all went and got cassette adapters so you could take your portable CD player, play it in your car, you know. So
true.
It's a different way for people to come up, you know. So but at the end of the day, it's pretty universal across all ethnicities, all age groups. Everybody loves music, loves good sound. They love music. You love movies, you love games. So at the end of the day, everybody's in
Hey, the
search
one
of
thing that is
something
still
better.
around that was around back then is vinyl. So
Yep.
that has seems like it's picked up big time here recently. So
Yeah,
I
definitely
noticed that JBL
physical formats for sure.
JBL selling some pretty nice turntables too. So
Yeah, fairly new within the last couple of years too. You guys have some new turntables.
Yeah, we launched the Spinner BT was our Bluetooth turntable. It's a $399 price point, pretty much ready to go out of the box. And that's been an incredible seller for us. But that's part of back to a bit of a return to physical media that we've seen over these years. You know, it was like 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever it was like turntables. Why are we all still talking about turntables? And that's a fad. It's going to go away. Well, here we are, 6, 7 years later, and we're like, it's still growing. It's coming back. It's not what it was when it was the only option, right? But it's certainly there. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, we saw compact discs are starting to grow again. And so the physical formats, I think, have been interesting. Again, because generationally, you think of it as that Gen Zs didn't grow up with those formats the way that we did as Gen Xers, or or if you're a millennial, you probably were on one end of it or not. But so we just have to think about the romance of listening to a piece of music. If you're a physical media, I got to take an album or a compact disc, I'm going to put it on a machine, a mechanical device machine of some type to play this. So I've got to take it out of its jewel case, out of its gatefold sleeve, put it on the thing, and then you've got all this artwork and things to look at. That was a very different experience than let me click play on this file.
Yeah.
So we've seen a lot of those changes there. We've also seen the ownership aspect of it too, is that, when you sign up for a streaming service and you're like, this is my music. Well, it's yours until you stop paying the monthly fee and then it all vanishes. Right. But, with your collection, it's like your content, you own it. So in the happy medium is, I believe, in between. And I think that's what we're starting to see, where people have, products that are capable of streaming, but they still want to have a turntable or something to listen to vinyl on. So that's the kind of stuff that we look at. It's like, okay, well, a Bluetooth turntable that pair active loudspeakers that I could stream to, that's a pretty cool combo because it gives you the option to do either.
Well, when you guys started doing your research for the MA line and the Speaker 2 line, were you targeting Gen Z, or were millennials kind of in that same market research group? Yeah,
both. Because we were talking a little bit before we started here too, one of the things that we looked at from that standpoint is, what is a customer's audio journey as they grow up? What are the types of devices they're going to want to have, and what are their needs? And as you age, those of course all change. So as you're younger, portable products and headphones that's the deal, because that's it. You don't really have a place to call your own yet, and you don't have the money to spend on gear. So that's where you're likely to start. And as you grow up, you get out of school, you go out and get your first place, then maybe you've gone out and purchased a sound bar or something like that. So it's like, hey, I got something better. I got a nice TV now, and I wanted some better audio to go with it. And we see that a lot of people play music through sound bars because it's the only system they have that plays audio outside of a portable device. And then, of course, you can get into traditional component audio, and then you can get up into, the high-end space where it's either, custom integrated stuff built into your home or distributed audio or these types of things. So it can vary as you go along. But obviously, it's one part of that is naturally going to be an older customer or a wealthier customer. Another part of it's going to be that younger customer. And what we saw is, and I'll say this as we were talking beforehand, selfishly from our end, from the Harman side, we own that customer on the low end because of the market shares that we have in portables and headphones and sound bars and party boxes and those types of devices. So customers know and love JBL because they probably had multiples of those. And then if you want to go from there, they were likely to go to another brand because we didn't have anything that was in that mid offer. And so for us, again, I'm part of the luxury audio business unit. And I've got to capture that customer back after they've moved on to brand XYZ or whatever in those categories. So when we were first thinking about this, was like, well, if that customer knows and loves JBL and they want to stay on this brand story, let's give them at least an option that they could look at for what's the next thing I do after I want something better than a soundbar. And so that's how this kind of whole thing started. And then we said, okay, well, if they want it, what are the things that are requirements for them? How do they live with the technology? Because it's different. The style, the way they interact with technology, those things are all very different for a millennial and then down to a Gen Z. So we had to think of things from a different approach. What are the pain points? What do they like or not like about it? And so that's where we went out and said, well, let's do that research and start from there and start to put those learnings into the products as we fleshed them out.
Okay. So, I'm just going to bring this on right now because we're going to dive into some of the products, but let's talk about the elephant in the room. I don't know. I'm sure you've talked about this so much at this point that you're sick of it, but with the original press materials that came out with the modern audio release and the Speaker 2 release were a series of videos. And I want to say that you told me at CEDIA that you guys hadn't intended really for those to go out to media. Is that correct? Or
well,
no?
So there were a couple of things. When you were there with me at CEDIA, we had created a sizzle reel that we were using internally to talk about these products. So we started off with the loudspeakers for stage 2, and then quickly paired up the MA AVRs with it and said, hey, now we got the 13 products, single brand solution to do music and multi-channel audio systems. And so we created this sizzle reel that kind of talked about, JBL heritage all the way back to, the sound of Woodstock and all the stuff that we've been involved in on the pro side and movies and, content creation, as it were, which is why we've been doing these events at recording studios, and explain that, and then brought in the idea of this, then the concept of simplicity that was, a major driver in the product development process for this. And so we put all those things together into a sizzle reel, and that's what we use when we were going out and preliminarily presenting it to our dealer and distributor partners around the world to get their feedback on it. When it came time to do the launch events, there were some requests to have some POP type of assets that could be created for in-store explanations, whether it could be some kiosk or something like that or whatnot that could be, a customer could come up and push a button and learn about it. So there were 4 videos created for that, one of which was kind of this overarching one. And then the other 3 were deep dives into, first one was on the AVR, second one on the speakers, and then the third one on kind of how do you create the systems, because that went back into part of the simplicity. So those 4 videos got created with a specific approach to how we did them. And then, they got sent out as part of the press, which was a little surprising to us because they weren't intended to be an ad campaign or anything like that. Again, more in-store materials that could be used, but they got out. And if they say, there's no such thing as bad press because everybody's talking about your brand, well, it worked from that standpoint. And I'd say we were 80+% positive response to it, but it was very polarizing in the respect that the ones that didn't think, oh, this is really cool, were like, this is horrible. What have you done? And you've offended people. And, so then they took off down that road for a variety of reasons. So it was very interesting and a bit unexpected response to some of it. I mean, we all had our internal opinions as stuff gets developed and bannered about, but it was very interesting to see the response to it. But
Sonny,
a lot of people that looked at it were like, how would you do this? But it was that whole video, which you've seen these videos, were created by Gen Zs. We were the old guys, and they're like, you guys just don't get it. And we're like, okay, you guys, it's targeted towards you. You're the customer, so have at it. So
Sonny, have you watched these?
No, I have not.
You have not. They're on our YouTube channel for anybody that wants to check them out. And I probably should go back and amend those because I think I labeled them as ad campaign because it wasn't really made clear what they were going to be used for. But I guess the style of them would be called cringe. Is that correct? Is that the correct verbiage for that?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah,
So
which was on purpose on their part,
uh-huh.
was to make it a little over the top. Maybe not so much cringe as camp,
Uh-huh.
that it was just kind of, and that was one of the interesting things to see, because you saw some of it and it kind of like, man, that's just, I don't get it, right? But then there were
Hmm.
other people who are like, oh, that's me and my friends, or all my friends do this, or yeah, all my kids that are of this age do that. So that was kind of the interesting thing about it. But sometimes uh, as I've aged, it's kind of like, am I the opinion that's there? Am I the old guy? Get off my lawn. Am I? It's like what's
Well,
kind of thing,
I
But
definitely had the reaction of what is this? It did make sense to me. Um, but then I showed it to my oldest daughter, and she had that exactly what you just said. Oh yeah, my friend. That's what my friends and I look like when we're hanging out. Which you can kind of see right there. Someone's on their phone. I think
yep,
actually two of the young women in this
two of
image
them are on
here
their phone in that shot. Yeah,
are on their phone, and then the one on the left there is the one that's doing the talk. Was hoping to be able to play one while we were on this live stream, but I couldn't get it to work
I'd
off
say
the
the one
slide
that's
deck.
the overall one, the first of the four, and if you numbered them 1 through 4, right? The first
Hmm.
one that's kind of just the overview of the whole thing is probably the campiest one. And then as you move into the ones that are more specific about the products themselves, is there's probably less of that because you're starting to get a little more into the details of the products, like what are the features and how do
Right.
you use the products, that kind of stuff. So it changes as you watch them. So if you do watch them, watch all 4 of them before you make your render any judgment. But
Yeah, and have they actually been used in stores? I mean,
uh-huh, absolutely,
as
yeah,
intended.
yep. And
Yeah.
like I said, the vast majority of the feedback has been positive on them. But it was another one of those things where it wasn't intended to be a major part of the thing, and all of a sudden we found ourselves looking at it being a major part of the thing. And we're like, oh, okay, didn't
Well,
expect
like you
that.
said, there's no bad press, really. I mean, it's
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah,
sure definitely memorable.
So are
yep.
these mainly YouTube videos, or I mean, I don't know how I missed them. But if they're on our channel, maybe I just hadn't
They've
looked.
ended up there. You can find them online because they
Okay.
did get sent out with all the press materials, so you can find them online for that standpoint. So
I mainly focus on things that Todd's posted in the forum. Maybe I missed this,
I think it was. I'm trying to remember. We definitely wrote about the launch of all the products, and I think in there I mentioned that.
I think, yeah,
Uh,
you did. You had originally at the launch, you had some comments about it in
uh,
there too.
I
about
probably
it.
just don't
About it.
remember it. I've read it
Yeah.
all. I mean, I read all of his articles, but sometimes
Actually,
some of them
I
don't
think
sink in
yeah.
as
There's a
well.
lot. There's so much news. There's so much news coming out all the time. But I think I called it cringy, and then I got an email from someone that said, "No, you got that wrong. It's called cringe." So I didn't even know what I was talking about at that point.
Yes, you got to get your lingo correct, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to. I'm trying. But the basic point is that the videos featured these young Gen Zers. They were all female, and it was. It seemed to me that it might be kind of an exaggerated way of how they talk to each other, but maybe not. I
Hmm.
mean, but
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
my
Yeah,
kids thought it was funny when they watched it, where I was watching it kind of in horror. But I think that's that old guy get off my lawn part of
that's
me coming
totally it,
out. Like,
right?
what the heck is this? Yeah.
Right. I think part of it as well. So wherever you light on, you can watch it and you go, "That's brilliant," or you're like, "Okay, I get it," or "That's horrible." Wherever you lie on it, I mean, part of it is just speaks to the fact that if we just continue doing what we're doing, this stuff's all going to die and go away because it's not connecting with younger customers, and that's really it. And it's from usage, it's from design, it's everything about it. I mean, if you just take, for example, that picture that's on the screen right now, if you were to replace all these products with a traditional black floor stander and a black AVR and a black center channel in that environment, that's not cohesive, and it's not the way that they want to live with their technology. So we have to change our mindset and think about, as these younger customers come into these different types of product categories, their expectations are very different. So if you don't change, it's going to go away. And that's back to, as we started this conversation, talking about the middle of the market is where it's going to go away first. When we talk about, oh, people don't want to buy AVRs or whatever. Well, no, they don't, because when we show them a black box with 50 buttons on the front and all these features that they don't know, understand, or care about, they're not going to do it, Sure. And that's why you see the way these are, super simplistic on the front, 2 knobs and 5 buttons, because that was part of the research. It's like, what do people want to do with them? Well, you want to change the volume, you want to change the input, and maybe you change your surround mode, but it'll typically do it on its own. If it's getting a bit stream coming across from your TV or something where you're going to watch a movie versus, doing something stereo. Bluetooth in all of these, Wi-Fi streaming in 4 of the 5. So, different ways to think about how we can use the technology and how it integrates. Of course, this is the black version. We didn't even have a black version at first when we started. We started with the white ones. Yeah. And when we first showed these, the response was just tremendous to the white ones, and specifically with women, because they're like, I don't want. How many of the guys that are out here, right, have dealt with your wife, your significant other, saying that's not going in my house, or that's not going out on display because I don't want to see it. And this got the exact opposite approach to it. The other thing why we started with white was we started thinking about what are the other components that the younger generation is going to use. Any guesses? It's a gaming console is probably the only other thing they're going to have. So if you got a PS5 sitting out there that's this cool white box and it's sitting out underneath your TV, why not have the AVR look like that PlayStation that was there? So that was how we started to think just a little bit differently about it. It's like, okay, if we do a black box slathered in buttons across the front, then hide it away in a cabinet. No one wants to see it. It's ugly. It's confusing. It's intimidating. So, but this was simplistic and it looked nice, and it was something that people would want to leave out on display. So that was kind of where we started. And then the black came along because, people are like, I need my security blanket. So I need the black one. But also, as you went higher up, there's 5 AVRs in the range. So as you move higher up into the more premium models, specifically when you get to the 2 HPs, those tend to be kind of more that traditional. And the 2 HPs, that's not your first AVR. You're not at an $11.99 and $15.99 price point. That's not your first AVR. Sure. So that was maybe a little bit more traditional, but they're also kind of the first AVRs to have these giant full color graphic displays on the front. And again, a different approach, because it's like, I want to see my album art and metadata. That you don't get that on AVRs. So, but those more simplistic ones, again, those lower price points all the way down to $3.99 that was where we were kind of talking about, that's a different customer, different needs. So the appearance, the UI, UX part of it, in terms of the simplicity on the front, that intimidation factor, don't underestimate that. We've all been into an audio video store, whether it's a mass retailer or a specialty shop, and you go back and look at the traditional component audio rooms, and nobody wants to go in those rooms because they don't understand the products. It's like, as a salesman, if you've worked at retail and worked on the sales side of this, you tell your customer about, now let me solve all your problems with this cool AVR, and let me tell you about whatever brand of AVR it was that I just showed you. And they're like, okay, cool, I get it. And you've kind of won them over for that. And now let me tell you about a completely different brand of loudspeaker that looks different and doesn't match it. And, so now you've started to tell these different stories. And so between that aspect of it, of, okay, now it's multiple brands, you're starting to lose me already. Now you're talking about features and all these controls, I've always called it the arms race of AVRs, right? Well, they had 15 logos on the front. We got to have 20 logos on the front. And they have all these features. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. This back panel that you're looking at is a perfect example. What more do you really need on an AVR? So, it was that, we had to balance, of course, as we were developing these, what's the steps between the models, and we can't be, oblivious to competitive market and how these are going to get sold and positioned in the market. But still, from an end user standpoint, what are they going to want to have? So that intimidation factor, when we identified some of the customer archetypes that we said we wanted to go after in this category, soundbar alternative was one of the first ones we said, that's that person that's, okay, this would be my first component audio system, my first multi-channel, true multi-channel system. And so that simplicity aspect of it, you tell me what I need. I don't want to pick an AVR and pick speakers because I don't know what any of it is or how it goes together. I just know what I want it to do. And so having a single brand solution and kind of these bundled system packages that we could create was one aspect to make it easier.
Can you talk a little bit about the user interface that's on this most basic model, talking about what the graphical user interface that they would see on a TV, and how that just in general, like from a setup perspective, you get this out of a box, you set it down, you've never used anything like this before. What happens when you turn this thing on, and how did you decide to shepherd along these kind of newbies?
So a couple of different things about it. The features themselves was try to reduce a lot of the confusion aspect of it, right? The things that you don't really need to it. So what do you basically need it to do? So also from that standpoint, how could we pre-configure as much of it as possible so that when it's out of the box, if I plug it in and have it connected to something, that sound comes out of it and picture comes out of it. Yeah, it's still an AVR. So there's still some complexity in that standpoint of, it's not an all-in-one unit. I've still got to get some speaker cable and put that out with my connect the AVR to the loudspeakers and position them about the room. I still got to have some sort of HDMI connection to the TV. So there's still that. Excuse me, which is
instructions on screen.
No. So one thing that we did not do in these, and that as I go back and look at them, it would have been a really cool thing to do, was to create some sort of automated setup wizard that would just do it all for yourself. It's not in here. I think it would be a cool thing to do. And if anybody's I just bought a new Apple TV again the other day. It's my 4th or 5th one somewhere around the house. I just needed it. So, but kind of like the TVs are today, where they do these automated walk you through it. There's an aspect of it there that would be a pretty cool thing to have in here. But in this one, it's all, again, kind of pre-populated for you. There is an on-screen display for it. It follows pretty closely what the display is on the front of the unit. So if you want to go in and configure it, but one of the ways of simplifying it was to just reduce a lot of the options. There's just 4 HDMI inputs on here. There's a couple of analog inputs that you may or may not need. So, from that basic part, you could connect a HDMI from your TV through an eARC, and maybe that's all you need to do. And then your speakers, which again, even with this unit, one of the things we talked about is it could be this AVR with just a pair of bookshelf speakers or a pair of floor standing speakers. It's going to sound better than most sound bars do anyways, just with that. And then from there, somebody could grow up and grow the system up to center channel surround, subwoofer or whatever they wanted to add with it as well.
Is there any sort of room correction in this product?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So they all have, all 5 models have what we call Easy Set EQ, which is a basic phone app that you kind of walk around the room with it, and it takes the measurements of it. It's primarily dealing with low frequency response because that's primarily where your room is affecting the sound of your system. So you can walk around the room and do that. It's free. It's easy set. So that kind of allows you to do that. When you get to the HP models, again, not my first AVR, those are also Dirac ready. So yeah, you've got the free Easy Set EQ, but if you want to take the step into Dirac, you could do that. And that's part of that where, again, we think that the HP models are going to maybe fit into that more traditional specialty audio custom integration side of the world. As not my first AVR, I know my way around these. And so they've got more features and more capabilities to them. The idea of Dirac is super cool and it can sound amazing when you're done, but to someone that's never done a multi-channel audio system or a component audio system before, as soon as you say, so first thing you're gonna do is connect your computer to it, they're gonna be like, I'm out.
You're right.
So, that was kind of, let me show you how to do this EQ with, 9 different mic positions around the room through your laptop and connected to the internet to feed it. And they're like, nope, not interested.
Yeah, that's it. It's so true. I would imagine that probably already with most AVRs, I would assume about 50% of people skip any sort of setup like that.
100, yeah, I would say 100. You're 100% correct. But yes, if we start to look at, the analytics of how are people using these devices, how many people are really doing the EQ, and that's back to the arms race aspect of this. As a manufacturer, you're not going to ignore your competitors. You've got to go out and do the market research to see what's there. But when you start to talk to the customers, it's like, we kind of do this. Well, they did it, so we should do it. We have to have this feature because they have to have it. But you talk to the customer, like, I don't need that. I don't care. It's not important to me. So, how many devices are they looking at? We all talk about, yes, these have 6 HDMI inputs. We did 4 on the lowest, but it's like, how many do they really need? 1, 2, maybe? How many devices are they going to connect to this that they need an HDMI for it? Do they need 2-zone output with independent control on a second zone? Probably not in most cases.
You'd be surprised how many people actually buy these systems and they don't fully utilize them. I know when I worked with SV Sound, part of my responsibility was walking. I mean, I had to learn all the different brands out there and how to set up all those auto EQs for every one of them, because I had to walk people through that. They bought these speakers or subwoofers and they couldn't figure it out. And they didn't know how to use all what they had. And we had to literally hold their hand and walk them through every bit of it to make them happy so that they would not return the product to us. We just spent an hour on the phone with them if we needed to. I mean, it was just what we did. So,
and you start to think about, how many of them there are, right? When you're talking about that. So you got Dirac, you got Odyssey, you got Arc. I mean, there's all these different ones out there, and plus whatever proprietary ones, including stuff like what we had in it. So as a retailer, that's even difficult. But it's one of the things you always, if you're in the industry, kind of joke about. You go around and watching any of these companies at a trade show trying to get these systems up and running, and you're like, it's difficult for the people that made the product. How do you the end users to know how to use this stuff? It's like, maybe we should take a different approach.
You say that. I mean, I watched, I'm not going to name the manufacturer, but I was in one of the sound rooms where there were 3 people who I would consider to be extraordinarily smart, spending about 20 minutes discussing with each other what they needed to do to get the system back up and running. And I had that same thought. I'm sitting there like, something's not right. Right.
So now you got to expect your dealer to know how to do that, and then the customer to know how to do that, and the tech support team. It just, it's like,
and then if something goes wrong for the customer at his home, and now you got to chase down, what's the problem? Where's the problem at?
Yeah. And now, so we did a lot of research up front too. Our parent company, Samsung, is probably everyone on this call knows. It gives us the access to a lot of capabilities and research. And so we partnered with them to go into customers' homes and do some research on what are the pain points of products. Specifically, 4 of the 5 of these, as I mentioned, have Wi-Fi streaming capability, Wi-Fi network capability to do streaming audio. And so it's like, okay, well, now we're talking about apps that are involved. And so you have to have an app to do streaming. So let's see how people use apps. What do they like about apps? What do they not like about apps as manufacturers? Because we see, again, more and more AV manufacturers are like, well, put apps on here, an app control, and you download my app, and here's my QR code. So in we went into their houses to see how they use the products and what were the pain points out of it. And with Wi-Fi enabled products, whether it's an AVR or a Wi-Fi speaker like behind me or your soundbar, number one pain point is getting it on your Wi-Fi network, which immediately ruins the joy of this cool new product that you got super jazzed about in the store. And then you took it home to listen to that great sound you heard there. And what a pain in the ass. I can't even get this stupid thing on my network. So now you're pissed off before you've even started doing it, Yep. So, okay, there's the number one pain point. And so, okay, well, let's make that easy. And so we have our app to get these things onto your Wi-Fi network so that it'll auto discover the device that's there. And then it sees your networks and you say, okay, go on this network, type in your password, and boom, there you go. It's connected to the network. So let's make that easier from that standpoint. And then we said, okay, well, now what else do you want the app to do? And they're like, we don't want to use the app. So because the only, you end up, think about in your daily life, how many apps do you have on your phone right now that do, there's an app for everything, literally. So I got to use this one for this one for this one for that. And when it comes to, the reason these are Wi-Fi enabled was to give you access to streaming audio on it. So that's going to come from Spotify, Qobuz, Tidal, what name your, streaming service that you want to use. They all have their own apps. So we as a manufacturer are always going to be 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps behind the app that they do. It's never going to be as good of an experience or as a robust of an experience as, for us to do the Spotify app. And the streaming services, of course, are taking that into their own hands right now, because you've got Spotify Connect and Tidal Connect, where it's like, you guys just get away from it. They go to our app. So like, awesome. Why don't you all do that? Because I don't want to try to replicate your app. And, the development hurdles of doing that, and then the constant maintenance of always updating the app and keeping them updated, which these are pain points that come back as a manufacturer when your customers start calling in going, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. How do you eliminate as much of that as possible? So when we were learning that those customers are like, I don't want to use the app, I want to get it on a Wi-Fi network, get it up and running as quickly as possible. And then if I'm going to stream Spotify, I'm using the Spotify app. Mm-hmm. So those were some of the things, that went into that initial thinking of what does it need to have and how does it need to work versus, we've always done it this way. So therefore let's keep doing it this way.
And just looking at the back of this is the, I guess you would call it the flagship.
That's the flagship. Yep.
This is probably the most traditional looking back end of all the products, right? I mean, this one is ready to run a surround sound system with Atmos.
Correct.
Essentially. Yep.
Yeah, this is the 9100 HP. And so for the secret decoder ring for any of you, so it's the Modern Audio, the MA series. Or multi-channel amplifier, whichever one. But Modern Audio 9100 it's the 9-channel version. The HP is the high performance model. So all of the model numbers kind of just designate what they are, right? The 510 is a 5-channel, the 710 is a 7-channel. The HPs have 4 digits in them to differentiate them from the other, because you got the 710 and the 7100 HP. They're both 7 channels, but they have very different features and capabilities. So 9100, this is the most populated rear panel of any of these, but even this is still pretty stripped down. Of course, binding post connections for the loudspeakers, HDMI ins and outs on there. And then the legacy, digital analog connections are kind of kept to a minimum on here. Mm-hmm. That's, and then Bluetooth and Wi-Fi antennas. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
This has the easy set EQ, and it also offers direct live if somebody wants to step
Correct.
up. Yeah. Okay.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So if you're going through the range, if you go back a couple slides there to the 710. So as you step up from the 510, the 310 is where we start, right? That's kind of the most basic unit, like 65 watts of power, 5 channels of surround, not a lot to it, 4 HDMI inputs on it. That one does 4K HDMI on it. When you step to the 510, the next one up, you're going to gain more amplifier power. It goes up to 75 watts of power, and you get an 8K HDMI video capability on it. But other than that, it's pretty much the same for it. And then when you go to the 710, as its name implies, I get 2 more channels. So this is the lowest model in the range that's Atmos enabled. So now what I could do is a 5.2 channel system and have the ability to have a pair of front height channel speakers, which of course we make in the loudspeaker part of the range.
Sure.
So that's what you get there. And then again, we're stepping up in power. This one steps up to 110 watts of power. Oops. This one also, the 710 also adds a couple of niceties, like there's a moving magnaphono stage that's in that unit. And so there's a couple of little things here and there that you'll get with it. When you go to the HP models, all of those have 2 sub outs as well, but they operate as one, but there's 2 sub outs in them, which is what most of the low end units do anyways. Everybody's got 2 sub outs, but most of them aren't independent, certainly not at low price points. When you go to HP model, so the high performance is you're going to gain more features for them again. So the difference between the 710 and the 7100, power goes up again to 125 watts with this one. The most obvious difference, of course, is on the front panel with that large full color display. So that was something that we wanted to put into the products, given that we had integrated network audio streaming capability with them, is let's let you have a nice display so I can see the album art and all the metadata when I'm listening to music. So that's on these products. Another thing that's not really shown in this image here, both HP models have an LED underglow below the front panel. And that was another thing from the industrial design standpoint of them, that we took that inspiration from gaming systems. Because think about, for any of you out there that your kids or family members are into gaming, everything has an LED light on it. Your headphones, your microphone, your keyboard, your mouse, the PC tower. Or if you're a console gamer, your PlayStation or whatever, they've got LEDs all over them. So we put this LED bar underneath the front panel of the HPs. That's really cool. So when you're in a darkened room, if you want to turn it on, you can choose from about 6-8 different colors. You can also put it in a randomizer mode where it'll just shuffle through the colors. So that was cool. The other thing that we gave them the capability is what I would call like stealth mode. So that big, beautiful display is super cool when I'm listening to music. But when I'm in a darkened room watching a movie, I don't want that giant display lighting up my room. So you can turn the display off so it just goes completely black on the front. And then if you want to have the underglow on, it's kind of a cool little accent thing. You can have it in there. So a lot of the shows, and you would have seen that, Todd, at CEDIA. We went into that one room where the display's off. So
right, I did see that.
So that changes when you get to these. And then the step from the 71 to the 9100, more power yet again, 140 watts of power. And really the only other core difference of this one is 2 more channels. So the flexibility on the 9100 is I could do a 5.1.4 or a 7.1.2, depending on how you wanted to configure it. You could select that because you've got enough channels to do it now. So we wanted to give people the option from that standpoint.
All right. We've got about 10 minutes left. So let's
so I said I can talk.
let's well,
let's go another hour. Come on, man. We got more time.
We would love to hang out. We could stretch this out 4 hours, I'm sure. I wanted to just touch on what you guys did with the speakers. We have a range of products here, a couple towers, a couple bookshelf models, then the center channel, and then the Atmos up-firing channel, and then a couple of subs. But what were you guys going for?
So there were 8 loudspeakers in a range. This is really where we started. So for those that are familiar with our product line, we had the Stage series, A190, A180, A1, all those current products that we've had for a few years. Has been our entry-level product range into component loudspeakers for JBL. They sound great. We won a lot of awards. It was a cool product. We felt that they were, I'll define them lovingly as pedestrian in their appearance, pretty much a black box. And we gave them the white cones, kind of a nod to our Heritage Classic series and stuff. That one's got the grill on. You can't see it. But so we said, well, let's kind of up our game in terms of the ID. And a lot of the research that went in, what we just were talking about on the AVRs, the white colors and things like that, we wanted to change up here. And so the sea of black boxes that is the AVR world is not much different when you get into the loudspeaker world. They're just black, right? That I'll show my age here. The Henry Ford approach, any color as long as it's black, right? What color is my Model T? Any color as long as it's black. So we wanted to change that up a little bit here. You're looking at this finish is the darker finish, which again, once we did the black AVRs, we said, well, let's do black. And this is not really a black box. The baffle is super dark gray. The cabinet itself is kind of a dark, like wing A type of color to it. And so we even then decided, hey, with this more youthful customer, let's give these names. So this is the espresso finish, the darker finish. And then the lighter finish that you see is called latte. So I think you showed on the bookshelves the lighter finish. So that's the latte finish, which is the white front end. But then we did kind of a mapley, birchy sort of finish on the cabinet. So much lighter, much fresher. And we'll go back to the start of our conversation, that image of the girls in the room. That's the latte finish with the white AVR. And it's obviously very fresh, completely different approach to how the products look in our environment, back down to the clean decor, that people are living with in their homes today. So that's kind of what drove that finish on the loudspeakers. Even the grills, right? So the grills you can see on these are gray, but if we were all in person and you had a chance to touch those, we used a different material, almost like a t-shirt kind of material, because we wanted them to be easy to clean, not attract pet hair and things like that. They're magnetic, so they come on and off very easy. So those were some of the things that we put into the appearance of it. So you do have a choice of 2 floor standers. There's a 6, 8. That one on the right is actually, that's 280F, but your price point is right. And then
I knew you were going to find an error in here. I knew it.
I edit documents daily. So the bookshelves, there's 2. There's a 4 and a 5 in the bookshelf, and the 4-inch in there is it's got the capability of a integrated wall bracket on the back, as well as a threaded insert for like a third-party bracket. So if you wanted to hang that little guy on a wall somewhere as a surround or something like that, you could. The 250B is more of a traditional bookshelf speaker. Then we have our center channel.
And you're just real quick, in your research, did you find that Gen Zers and millennials were looking for floor standers, or were they talking more about the smaller bookshelf and then
they don't necessarily, I wouldn't say that there's a preference necessarily, because it's going to depend on your environment. If a bookshelf really goes on a bookshelf, you have to have a bookshelf for it. But other than that, it needs a floor stand. We make a pair of matching floor stands to be sold with these. So if you put them on floor stands, because there's no shelf to put them on, they take up the exact same amount of floor space as the towers do, because they have the same footprint. But it's a lower priced option for you. So, you know, a pair of these with stands is still less money than the floor standers. So, so the options are there, but then also, you know, that same standpoint, if I started off with the MA310 and a pair of 240Bs or 250Bs, that's a cool little system right there. But then if I wanted to get a pair of floor standers later on, I can move those 250s to the rear channels and use that as my surround. So just if you wanted to upgrade the system, you could do it that way.
Out of curiosity, these 250Bs or the 240Bs, are they best paired with one of the subwoofers, or can they stand alone?
I mean, the 250's got pretty good bass on. Obviously, a 4.5-inch bookshelf speaker is not going to have tons of bass, certainly not at high levels. So you probably want to put that with a 200P. But the larger one, it's got pretty good bass on its own, depending on the, you know, genre of music that you're going to listen to it. And then 245C, that's our center channel. Rather than, you know, traditionally those would be 5s, we went with quad 4.5s primarily to get the height down, a little shorter on it. Obviously, it forces it to be a little bit wider. But with the 4 woofers too, we get a little more dynamic capability out of it. It's got good bottom end to it. Dialogue clarity, of course, is one of the key things and one of the huge pain points of soundbars. So having a true dedicated center channel and one that sounds pretty good was key for us. 240H, a bit of a chameleon product. We started off with it, of course, the H in its name is for height channel, but the shape of it is, you know, kind of a traditional Atmos elevation module intended to sit on top of one of the floor standers. You could put it on a bookshelf, but it's deeper than a bookshelf, so it looks weird. But on the 6 or the 8 floor, it works great. So, and this is an Atmos, you know, certified product in that respect that you can use it, but there's a switch on the back of this thing. And on the very back of it is a keyhole mount again, and a threaded insert for third party, and a switch to convert it to a surround function. So I could put it on a wall and use it as a traditional surround speaker mounted on the wall if I wanted to, rather than using it as an elevation module. So you got a bit of two-way capability that you can do with those guys.
Cool.
And then the subs you talked about, so 10 and 12-inch subs, a little bigger, a little more power, a little deeper for the large one. But
not exactly apartment friendly, though. Were you guys also finding that to be a driver?
Subs in general are not MDU friendly, as we would say. So apartments, condos, those types of things, and unless your neighbors are going to come watch with you. So you'll see some of that. And that's, you know, one of the things that's been interesting about soundbars is soundbars keep getting bigger and bigger subwoofers attached to them, which is kind of interesting. So these subs are by no means bigger than, some of the soundbar subwoofers that are out there now. Certainly the 10's not, right?
Mhm.
In terms of physical space. But yeah, I mean, bass is hard to contain, as I'm sure everyone listening knows. And so, yeah, in an apartment, invite your neighbors
It's
or
pretty
wait
cool.
for the knock on your door.
They're going to be hearing it one way or another, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
You basically can get a pretty good system there for about $800, a pair of bookshelf speakers, and that second in line AVR that you guys are selling there would land you right around that price point.
Yeah, and that was as we thought about customers again and where they're coming from. Yeah, so a 310 with a pair of bookshelf speakers, an $800 system. It's a cool hi-fi system. Even in a surround system, if I do a couple pair of bookshelf, center sub, and one of the AVRs, it's like $1,700 thereabouts. Our JBL Bar 1300X is about $1,700, so it's on parity with price of the sound bar. So it's not like, hey, this is way better sounding, but it's also way more expensive. It's about the same price. It takes up more space in your room, but now you've got discrete capabilities and obviously a much better sounding product for music and, true surround discrete capability with your rear channels and a center channel and all that. So, and then on the upper end, if you want to build a system fully out, we make a matching range of in-wall and ceiling products, part of Stage 2 family. So there's 8 in-wall and ceiling products. So if you truly get up into an HP, we've shown systems, within walls for the sides and surrounds and in ceilings for the height channels. You're still under high fives, right? $5,800, $5,900, like full max, total channel count, 2 subs, 2 big subs, big floor standers, center, in walls, in ceilings, and the biggest AVR. So that's not your first multi-channel system, but it's by no means a crazy expensive one. We make JBL synthesis AVRs that are almost $9,000 for an AVR. So a complete, 9-channel system of speakers and AVR for, about 30% less than that. Not a bad price. So
yeah.
So and I know we're limited on time, but since you mentioned the synthesis system,
I knew it.
The process. What's the status on the waveforming implementation?
Well, from a bass standpoint?
Well, I mean, it's still not available, right?
Oh, are you talking the waveforming?
Synthesis? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, our SDP75 is a variant of the Trenoff Altitude 32. So technically you could get waveforming on it. We've not really had anybody do it yet. We have our internal opinions of, what works and what doesn't. The sheer notion, at least in my mind, the sheer notion of convincing someone to use that many subwoofers in a room. We've always, of course, based our subs on sound field management technology. And of course, for anyone that's read any of the AAS papers that were out there, or even the new RP22 recommended practice guidelines that came out, all of that subwoofer stuff was based on research that Todd Welty and Sean Olive did within Harman on using subwoofers in multiples or 2s or 4s primarily to eliminate as many nulls and peaks in a room as possible, so that you're not burning up EQ to try to compensate for things that you could have compensated with good sub placement or 2 or 4 subwoofers. But even then, so if you're familiar with JBL synthesis, we obviously promote using at least 2 or 4 subwoofers and sometimes pairing them up in their locations, but that's typically how we do it. But you find that it's difficult to convince people, I have to have 2 of these? Why do I need 2 of these? It's a subwoofer, right? And so then when you're talking, I got to have 4 of these? Why do I have to have 4? So when you start to move into waveforming and whatnot, it's impressive when we go to these shows and you walk into these demo rooms and it's like, there's 18, 15-inch subs in this room. And you're like, that's cool and completely unrealistic. But, so
you got a cool $500,000,
Yeah. Probably more than that.
There's a butt for every seat, as I like to say. So there's sure, if you want that many.
I'd like to. What's the big daddy that you guys have in the synthesis line?
The subwoofer is the SSW1.
SSW, yeah.
I mean, if you heard a chance to hear that, 2 of those, is equal to 6'8" of a lot of other subs. So if you have the space and the power to drive them, it's a big boy. You know, it's twin 15s, and they are serious 15s. And that sub plays down into the mid to low teens in a room with, you know, a lot of amplifier power behind it. So you can run about 2,500 watts into each driver in that sub. So, but that's another one again where, you know, that sub is 8250, 8500, but then you're going to need about a $5,000 amplifier or more to get enough power to put on it. And however many subs you have, you need 1 or 2 amplifiers for each one of those subs. Those are the kinds of things when you're getting into big high count systems. Yeah,
we're power station nearby, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And Sonny, have you had a chance to see those?
440 to your house.
Right, exactly. Yep. And Sonny, have you had a chance to see that big guy in person? No, it's impressive.
It is impressive. Yeah. Well, if you're if you're at one of our shows, come check it out. We had those in our demo theater at CEDIA.
When's the next show?
Well, if you're going to be in Barcelona in February for ISE,
we'll make that one.
I think right now there's about a 95% chance that I will be there.
Oh, well,
I think I'm going to come over.
Yes, I will see you there then, and you can check out the synthesis demo.
If Todd's buying the plane tickets, I might be there too.
I've got one for you, Sonny. It's down in the hall, you know, with the luggage.
In other words, you're going to zip me up in the luggage, right?
I think the stars are going to align this year, though. I want to get over there. I've heard such great things about that show.
It's massive. It's a big show.
When's your
Bring
next
your walking shoes.
U.S. show presence?
I'm sorry?
When's your next U.S. show presence?
From a multi-channel standpoint like that, it'll be CEDIA in September.
Yeah.
We do, you know, most of the big, so ISE in Barcelona, the custom integration show for Europe. And that's where, you know, we focus on the JBL synthesis brand and RCAM brand in terms of multi-channel products. Then the next big one for us really, we'll have a presence at Exponent in terms of 2-channel stuff happening in the US, and that's in April. Then May, of course, is the big boy, the Munich high-end show in May. And that's really, for us, we shift gears, and that's a focus on, you know, 2-channel products from Mark Levinson, JBL, and RCAM. Over there, and then we move into the fall with CEDIA. So they kind of shift back and forth between, you know, 2-channel and multi-channel shows.
Do you have a preference, Jim, on between home theater oriented multi-channel versus the 2-channel?
In terms of the shows, you mean, or just in terms
in terms of like how your enjoyment of attacking those shows is it more fun going down the multi-channel route for you?
It's certainly more of a challenge. You know, putting our booth together for CEDIA every year, we're one of the biggest booths on the show floor, and the amount of work that goes into all those demo systems that we do, it's a lot of work, but it's rewarding. You know, it's a good show, and that's a good industry show to catch up with everybody, customers, press, fellow manufacturers, you know, so it's always a great show. Munich is a great show in a completely different respect. I mean, I'm a music guy first and foremost, and but I love home theater, right? My college degree is film and television production, so creating content was what I was kind of all about. But I also play in a band. I've been a musician my whole life, and so I'm very much, you know, a music guy. So Munich is always cool. First of all, it's Munich. Hard not to love hanging out in the city for a week, but just going around and seeing the crazy exotic stuff that's there. But more importantly, it's just a chance to listen to some great music. And I love getting a chance when we can finally get out of our booth, usually near the end of the show, go walk the show and just, what are people playing? What's everybody listening to? I want to find some new music while I'm here. But of course, I'm also a gear geek, right? So it's like I've been in this is the only industry I've ever been in. You know, and I've worked for a lot of major brands throughout. I've been with Harman almost 15 years, but I love products, love gear. So it's, you know, as a car guy, like I just went to the LA Auto Show, kind of look at stuff. That's kind of fun to walk around and see everything. Munich's the same way. I love walking around and seeing the speakers, the electronics, just the pieces of art that people create. There's so much cool stuff out there. It's a great industry to be a part of. So I'm fortunate in that respect. My hobby is my career. So
yeah, yeah, Sonny, that's the one we got to get you out to is Munich.
Yeah,
maybe one day.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
Well, if you don't go this year, it's the Vienna high-end show next year because it's moving out of Munich. So this is the last year for it. It's in May, middle of May. I can't remember the exact dates, but typically mid-May. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard such good things about it.
Yeah,
that might be one to plan for and go over there and have some Wiener Schnitzel.
Yeah, Schnitzel and rosa beer.
Yeah, and enjoy some music.
I'm good music for sure. Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Jim, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I'm glad we kind of planned it out this way. And we talked about in the show floor about doing an interview, but there's just so much to dig through on this particular product class. It seemed like a live stream was probably the best route to go.
No, I appreciate it. There is a lot to talk about, and I'm already thinking of like 5 different things we could have talked about. So, and we didn't get to open up to any questions or anything too. So it's
it's funny. We've had a good audience tonight, and nobody had any questions. So right. I guess you were answering all the questions.
I either answered them all or they fell asleep. One of the two. What's that old guy yapping about?
Well, maybe we can arrange to have you on again and talk about different, maybe 2-channel stuff or
sure.
Whatever it may be.
Yep, always up
we'll
for
cook
it.
something up.
Like plan.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, Jim, if you can hang on for just a second, just to make sure everything loads up, and I'm going to take us offline. Everybody, thanks for joining us, and we'll be back. I think we have the CEO from Magnetar, Sonny. I haven't run this by you, but maybe between Christmas and the end of the year, we're going to try and have him on it. They've been asking to come on and join us. So
that'd be good. Yeah,
that'd be fun. We'll game plan on that. But until next time, folks, we will see you soon. As long as I can remember how to take us out of here.
So long.
And there we go.